Welcome in, Frostburg State fans, to our fall recap of all of our fall sports from this past 2021 season. I'm delighted to be joined by Colin Kirkwood, who's our broadcaster and has seen many of these teams play. So, Colin, right off the bat, these fall sports, a lot of them really successful years, and every team that was eligible to make an MEC tournament ended up making that tournament.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's a really exciting time to be a Frostburg State sports fan here. I mean, when you have so much success and you're not even into the part where you can compete in NCAA national tournaments yet, which will start next year, in case some of you may not know that, but still, it's a very great time to be a Frostburg State Bobcat fan.
Yeah, year two of the provisional status, and so next year will be the year that we're allowed to compete. We'll start off with football, a team that, you look at the rankings and would have made an NCAA playoff push this season. Ended up being co-champions in the MEC, tied with Notre Dame, a 10-1 year, and a very close loss to Notre Dame in the regular season. Team that had a lot of success in Division III, was a top 5 team, and now coming up to Division II in just their second full season, winning a share of a conference championship.
Yeah, and let's not forget the fact that they made it into the national polls for D2 college football, all the way up to 17th in the country in the AFCA coaches poll. I mean, that's a pretty impressive feat for a team, like you said, that was Division III not that long ago and was very high in that poll as well. So just all sorts of success. You can tell it's a program, and it goes top to bottom, from coaches all the way down to players buying into what the coaches have to say. It's just well run, and they know what they're doing. They're a very successful program, and I think next year is going to be a very, very fun time.
Yeah, for them, a little bit of a slow start on the year, a couple of close wins that, necessarily play well, but getting the results. And then the big win against Charleston, double overtime, the home opener, was a great game to watch. And then the very close loss to Notre Dame, and then the end of the season, they really turned up the heat, and they showed this conference what they're all about. The second best offense in the league, second best defense in the league, and they were really competing at the highest level, like you said, making it to the national polls, and the country took notice of what this team can do.
And you didn't even get to mention how great the special teams has been for them throughout the entire season, blocking kicks, blocking punts, and just it's been a really fun team to watch here, and they really have the right brand of football, and they know what they need to do moving forward to be successful and try to make a playoff push deeper into the national picture next year, not just the conference getting a championship. Want to do that as well again next year, but still, plenty more to be done.
This senior class that has graduated, the 18 seniors that they had, 3 of them that really stood out to us throughout the entire year that have had great careers. We want to honor, obviously, the whole 18 that contributed to this team winning a conference championship. But Gavin Lavatte, Malik Morris, Carl Igwe broke a lot of career records, had fantastic seasons. Carl led the entire country in sacks with 17. That was the most by 3 full sacks. Gavin breaking the rushing record, Malik breaking the receiving touchdowns and receiving yard records. But those 3 and that senior class, it's career Frostburg guys that they signed on, and it was like, hey, you're going to compete at Division III, and now you're competing at Division II, and you're some of the best players in the country.
Yeah, and they continue to show just how pivotal they were for this program, and they did everything they possibly could to get this program through that transition phase that we're just about done with here once this year wraps up. And without them, I think it would be a completely different picture. But thank you to all of them for doing everything that they did and getting us moving forward.
Looking ahead to next season, and really, this team is loaded coming back. I mean, almost the entire defense, bar Carl, and a linebacker or 2, and a couple of defensive backs. But a lot of that team that was so successful comes back on the offense. You bring back Graham Walker. You bring back a lot of that offensive line. You bring back Josh Maxwell, who's a really talented running back. Really, the receiving core is the one that you may have a question mark about, but with this coaching staff, they're going to get it figured out. And like you said, compete next year to potentially win the conference outright, potentially make a run into the national championship stage and be able to make that playoffs. But this team certainly is set for success for the future.
Oh yeah, they're definitely ready to roll next year, and I'm sure they'll have the right pieces in place once August finally rolls around and we get to start with the next non-conference matchup to start the season.
Another very successful team from the fall, women's soccer, who we both saw for many games. Bit of a rough start to their season, a couple of early losses to a couple nationally ranked teams, but went 10 games unbeaten throughout the regular season, won the North Division in the conference, made it to the MEC championship game, and, like we say with football, this team is primed for the future as well to be successful and compete for championships next year at the national tournament level.
Yeah, it's another team, like we said, we always got to give credit to the coaching staff, and Parker over there for women's soccer, he always finds a way to get things done. He's a great recruiter as well, and he finds the pieces that his team needs to move on forward and get people plugged into the right places and find just the way to combat everybody, and he does does a great job at that.
Along with him, Ashley St. Aubin, who was named to the United Soccer Coaches 30 Under 30 coaching program, a very highly regarded coach, not just in Frostburg, but across the country. Laura Dougal working with the goalkeepers, Ashley Bilger, who we know was very talented, very good throughout the entire season, helping out her defense. Looking at the end of the year where, they had some of those losses, there were close losses late in the season, just not able to really find that extra energy to go on. But then the MEC semifinal, they beat Charleston. Again, one of the top teams. They made the tournament this year. And then the championship, they only lose 1-0 to Concord on a penalty kick at that for the one goal. Concord just now making it into the Elite 8 in the country. So, this team is competing with the highest teams at this level.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that championship game, you're maybe 2 to 3 right bounces away from perhaps winning that game outright in a general. So, I mean, you could tell everything's there. They've got everything where it needs to be. Everything's packed in, and they're ready to go next year. I'm sure without a doubt. I know we're going to lose some people, but I'm sure they can fill in and next man up mentality.
Yeah, Audra Curtin, Lexi Pate, Mackenzie Foltz, just to name some of the seniors that are moving on. But, you have a lot of young talent behind them. Kat Smith was our freshman of the year for the conference. You have Tony Fiacco-Miser, Caroline Burton, Hannah Thompson in the midfield, freshman wingbacks really that compete out wide. So, you look ahead and next year with another recruiting class coming in, that's going to be a real team to watch. A team to watch for this year, men's soccer, really surprised a lot of people, made the MEC tournament for the first time since joining Division II, and a team that in the spring you looked at them and they were a bottom 3 team in the conference by record, but they showed up this year, made the tournament, got the 4th spot, and really surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very, very, very tough soccer conference on the men's soccer side as well as the women's soccer side. But just looking at the men's soccer side in general, I mean, there's so many good teams, and they recruit from places all across the world. You take a look at teams like Charleston, you take a look at Davis and Elkins. I mean, they have talent from quite literally all over the world. For a fact that this soccer team was able to bring in a group of a lot of guys from around this area, not that far away, part of Maryland and whatnot, and bring them together and be able to compete against talent like that, it says a lot about their program.
Yeah, and those two teams you mentioned, Charleston and Davis and Elkins, just played yesterday in the round of 16, and Charleston ended up winning on PKs to go to the Elite 8. So another team from this conference that we could compete with, and they made it into the national stage. Early part of the year had undefeated through the first 4 games, really came out strong, and then got the results when needed. And this isn't a team where they're going to use flair and a lot of pizzazz and really wow you offensively, but they get their results. They're solid defensively. Joel Asal in goal, one of the best in the conference, and he's got a solid defense in front of him that they know what their job is, and they can do that job to get those just goals when they need to and defend well enough throughout the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's just about the best way you could put it there, and I'm sure next year they're going to have the same mentality going forward and try to improve on that record and maybe boost it up just a little bit more. I mean, 8-9-1's nothing bad at all, but still try to maybe get above the 500 mark there next year and keep on going forward.
Yeah, especially looking at this conference, we're only 3 points off, basically a win away from being actually the 3 seed in the conference, so one definitely to look forward to for next year. Volleyball, our next sport up, again the first team to make the MEC playoffs since joining Division II. Big credit, and we've given credit to a lot of these coaches. Just a quick shout out to men's soccer for Keith Burns for getting that team figured out. Kylie Hine, who returned to our alma mater, didn't win a game in the spring, and a young team that was learning how to play. Come in this year, they win 9 games. They make the MEC playoffs. That's showing that, you can't just, expect a coach to come in right away and fix things. It takes time, and she really has gotten this team onto the right track.
Yeah, I mean, coming into a program and really trying to make it your program as a head coach is never going to be anything easy. It's not a simple feat, and you're going to have some of those growing pains, like you said, in that first season. But here you can definitely see they're starting to put the right foot forward and start working forward to what they need to be and what they need to do to be a successful program.
Yeah, getting their first wins in a couple of non-conference tournaments early in the season really helped their mentality, I think. What we talked about in the spring is a lot of this team, it was just, you're talented, but you just have to believe that you can win, and that was part of it. A key 4-game win streak in October to make that playoff run. A big win at home over Charleston, who was one of the top 3 teams in the South Division. An upset win, you consider it, considering how good Charleston was. But just for this team mentally to be able to make that leap, and then going into next year is thinking like, well, we made the MEC tournament this year, why can't we go on and maybe get a 500? We can maybe get an above 500 record next year.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it just from talking to the coaching staff and whatnot. One of the things that they really focused on and trying to make things better this year was trying to get that on-court mentality in the right place and, not really kind of just throwing yourself against it when you find yourself in a hole or maybe you lose a set or two in a row. Just having that mentality to be able to hang in there and put things together in the way it needs to be done so you can come back and win that game and not just let it happen. Best way to put it.
A couple of key players that stood out this year. Beverly Braun, who we all know, one of the best outside hitters in the conference, first team All-MEC. Along with her, AJ Thompson, a real revelation as a freshman coming in as a middle hitter, earned a spot on the all-freshman team. And Haley Delore, our setter, who is a transfer from Marshall, came in and really just added another dimension to that setting position where she's also able to attack off the bounce. And those three players, along with some of the defensive qualities, McKenna Hauser, our libero, is going to be back for another year. Fiona Gonzalez Medina, a really talented freshman defensive player, is going to be back. This team is primed for another couple years at least, where a lot of these players have minimum 2 years left to really make their mark on this, again, a talented conference for volleyball.
Yeah, I mean, you jumped in, you learned your teammates' play styles, you learned what you need to do going forward to get things moving, and just that's half the battle, learning what you need to do with your teammates to try to be successful. They've got a season of that under their belt. Now they can try to move forward and really make some noise.
And so those are our fall sports that were eligible for MEC competition late in the year. Quick jump to cross country, who also competes in the MEC, but is an automatic qualification for them. Justice Lee Provost, Liz Stanley for the men's and the women's sides, respectively, our top performers, ran pretty well. For the men's team first, it's a close-knit group. When I would talk with head coach Shane Brookshire, they run a lot together. There's not going to be that one standout guy that leads the pack and tries to get you a top 5 spot. They're all going to be in that pretty much 10 to 25 range and just try to get the most points possible. But that's a team that, give them more time again, and some of these programs are rebuilding that, once you give them a couple years at this level, they can go and compete at that highest places.
Yeah, it's just a learning experience at this point in time. Like you said, just trying to stick together and try to get as most points as possible. And it works a lot of the time there, and they're just trying to learn and see what they need to do moving forward, as always.
And for the women's team, and a pretty good story just in general, is that it's their first time really competing in 3 years as a team. They've had individuals, but not able to compete at the championships as a team to earn points. Got 8th place at the championships, but just a great story for them to be able to compete. And it's a lot of young talent there. That some sophomores and freshmen that are going to be there and help build this team for the future, and just good to see them competing again.
Yeah, it's almost like a bit of a renaissance, if you will, the best way to put it here. Another program making their way back and showing what they can do, and just adding to another reason why to love Frost Park State athletics, seeing things like that come back.
And, for them, their preparation into track season, where it's not really, you don't get any seasons off really when you're a distance runner. It's you compete cross country in the fall, you have a winter season where you compete indoor, and then the spring you compete in the outdoor track season.
Yeah, you think about it, it's actually really impressive considering they continue to just switch gears throughout the entire year and keep on moving.
Yeah, and just getting that togetherness, like we've said, you're with that team for so long that you build that camaraderie, and then, it helps you just as team chemistry, which often gets lost in the talent level and how teams play, is that you still need to be together as a team to compete.
Right.
So field hockey, our final sport that we talk about, another very young team. They're learning to compete at this level. A bit difficult on them not having a conference, so it's hard to gauge, with the PSAC, with the SAC, with the Conference Carolinas of where they stand. But a couple of big results for them, one especially late in the year, the 5-3 win over Queens down in Carolina. But this is another team where it's just a matter of them figuring out how to play at this level.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at this level. I mean, field hockey has a lot of talented squads in Division II. You look at just the PSAC, for example. You've got teams like Millersville, Shippensburg, East Stroudsburg. There's plenty of them all across the board that are full of talent, and they really make it difficult to try to win around. Westchester as well, another one that's very, very good at this level. And just getting a schedule with all of them, with a chance to look at them and see how they play and see what you're going to need to do to be successful at this level going forward, it's the best thing you could have possibly done.
And we talked about, similar to volleyball in the spring season where, volleyball didn't win a game, but then they come in this year, and it was just a matter of learning how to win. We saw field hockey in a lot of games this year where they played pretty well against some top teams, and one game that really stood out was that East Stroudsburg game here. East Stroudsburg, a top 10 team in the country. The 3-0 result didn't really give the message.
Yeah, I don't think it really showed the story of that game because it was close throughout almost the entirety of that.
Yeah, and it was just a matter of the team just learning, like, hey, this is one of the best teams, not like, hey, we can play like this team, but this is how one of the best teams in the country plays. So we look at that and be like, the young players, Heidi Van Dyke, Madison Mandelanson in goal, Zoe Redding up top as a freshman. A lot of young players were, again, freshmen and sophomores are really carrying this team and, getting that mentality of what we can do for the future.
Yeah, I mean, moving on forward here, I mean, there's obviously going to be plenty of room to improve here, and they'll have a great chance to do so, but there were still plenty of great moments throughout their season this year. That win over Seton Hill, one of the fun ones to remember from this season.
Yeah, that Seton Hill win, another big one along with that Queens victory, and then very close loss at the end of the season to Coker. But that end of the season lets you see, this team can compete with a lot of these teams. So that will wrap up our fall sports wrap up, ironically that is. But stay tuned here on the Frostburg Sports Network. You can listen to Colin for all of our winter basketball games on 99.5 WDZN. He'll be on the call with Jacob Hawk for all of those. So stay tuned throughout the winter. We'll be back in the spring for some more sports awards, some more videos. Stay tuned. You never know what you're going to see here on Frostburg Sports.